The skies over the battlefield of Varkal burned violet with plasma fire. 10,000 screams echoed through the ruined stone of ancient alien temples, where once the Vael'Zir, an empire of towering warlike beings, had ruled unchallenged. Now, their civilization crumbled under the weight of war and hubris. At the center of the chaos stood Xyrentha, the so-called death goddess of the Vael'Zir. Standing over 15 feet tall, adorned in living armor that pulsed with void energy, Xyrentha was a monument to terror. Her obsidian skin shimmered with interwoven runes. With a voice that broke stone and a mind sharpened by centuries of war, she was the last of the warlords still fighting against the Interstellar Peace Coalition. And she had no fear, especially not of humans. Then came the human. His name was Elias Kale. A former terraforming engineer turned reluctant diplomat, Elias was average by human standards. 6 feet tall, brown hair, stubborn chin. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't augmented. But he carried something the Vael'Zir had never understood. Conviction without pride, compassion without weakness. Elias stepped alone through the ruins toward Xyrentha, unarmed, covered in dust and sweat. The fires around him lit his silhouette like something out of myth. Xyrentha laughed, her voice like thunder. "You. The coalition sends a frail ape to parley. Do they hope I'll crush you slowly and feel pity?" Elias didn't flinch. "No. They sent me because they knew you'd never listen to anyone who came with a weapon." That made her pause. No being, let alone a human, had ever approached her like this. Middle. Elias walked right up to her, stopping only when the heat radiating from her armor burned his skin. "You've lost, Xyrentha. Your temples lie in ruin. Your people, what's left of them, have surrendered. This war is over. But I'm here because I think you're not finished yet. Not with destruction. With meaning." She stared at him, disarmed by the absurdity of it. "You think I need meaning from a creature whose spine I could pluck like a reed?" "I think," Elias said calmly, "you've been a goddess of death so long you forgot how to live." Something cracked deep inside her. For centuries, Xyrentha had been a symbol, worshipped, obeyed, feared. When the war began, she became even more than that. Judge, executioner, legend. But no one had talked to her since she'd taken her father's skull throne. Not as a person. Not even as an enemy. "Speak your truth then," she said mockingly, crouching until her glowing eyes met his. "Entertain me before I turn you to ash." Elias didn't flinch. He told her of Earth, of wars they'd fought and nearly lost to themselves. Of how humanity nearly broke under its own hatred, and how they changed. He told her how the coalition wasn't about domination, but coexistence. And how beings, yes, even goddesses, had value beyond bloodshed. "You were born into war," he said softly. "You never chose it. But you can choose what comes next." Something in her eyes flickered. She remembered her mother's voice, soft and distant. She remembered playing with her sister beneath the hovering stones of the temple before their people forged her into a weapon. A childhood buried under centuries of war. Xyrentha stood silent. Elias turned his back to her. "Slowly. When you're ready to stop being feared and start being remembered, for who you are, not what you destroyed, come find me." And he walked away. She stood there, trembling, not with rage but confusion. No one had ever turned their back on her and lived. No one had ever left her. Transition. Days passed. Then weeks. Xyrentha sat alone among the ruins. Her people had vanished into surrender, some off-world, some dead. She didn't pursue them. For the first time in her life, she had no command. No army. No title. She could still hear Elias's words like an infection in her mind. At first, she dismissed it as weakness. But the more she lingered, the more her silence fed reflection. She wandered the battlefield and for the first time saw it, not as a victor but as someone mourning. Her feet stepped over bones that once sang hymns to her glory. The temples, now broken, whispered only of arrogance. She found a human relief camp days later. Meager structures built from wreckage, humans tending to wounded Vael'Zir civilians. Not prisoners, patients. And there he was. Elias was setting up a water purifier, sleeves rolled up, hair tied back with a strip of gauze. When he saw her, his face didn't harden with fear. Didn't mock. He simply smiled. "You came." "I don't know why," she admitted. "I do." He offered her a water container. "Because you're ready to stop pretending you're something you never chose to be." Climax. Not everyone welcomed her. Some humans drew weapons. Others fled. But Elias stood between her and them, arms raised. "She's not our enemy anymore." Still, the tension never left completely. And yet Xyrentha remained. Days turned into weeks. She learned to work beside humans, reluctantly at first. Her fingers, built for crushing, learned gentleness. She helped rebuild a shelter. She stabilized a shattered pillar with her own body while others reinforced the base. They began to call her Xyra. Name, not a title. The turning point came when a Vael'Zir child, orphaned and starved, stumbled into camp and collapsed at her feet. The humans hesitated, expecting her to recoil or destroy. But Xyrentha knelt, gently lifted the child into her arms, and turned to Elias. "She needs help." The humans stared in silence. Elias smiled. "And so do you." Ending. Months later, Xyrentha sat beside Elias beneath a starlit sky, a campfire crackling between them. Her armor was gone. She wore simple robes now, hand-woven by settlers who had accepted her. Her face was less fierce, more thoughtful. But her presence remained imposing, like a sleeping storm that had chosen peace. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "What?" "Walking away from me. A day. You didn't know I wouldn't kill you." He chuckled. "Oh, I absolutely thought you would. I just figured. If I was going to die, I'd rather do it being myself than bowing." She studied him. "That's what unnerved me. You didn't fear me the way others did. You saw through it. I saw you. And I wasn't going to fight someone I hadn't spoken to." She looked away. "I laughed at you that day. Mocked you." He nodded. "And then you begged me not to walk away." Her jaw clenched, not in anger, but emotion. "I still don't know why." "Yes, you do," he said gently. "You didn't want to be alone anymore." Tears welled in her eyes, dark, shimmering streaks down a face that had never known softness. "I still don't." He reached across the fire and placed his hand in hers. "You're not." She looked down at their interlocked fingers. Once she could have snapped him in half. Now she marveled at how something so small could be so strong. The war goddess had become something else, something no prophecy had foretold. Not a queen, not a destroyer, partner, protector, symbol of change. And the human who dared to walk away. He never had to again.